The basic idea of an exclusive gate is you have multiple exclusive gates, they're all named the same. Only one of them can be open. So when you send a positive signal into it, it tries to open, basically. And then nothing else can be opened while that's open. And then if you close that, then that one can open because it's not blocked by this other one. And there's various different ways of manipulating which ones are allowed to open and which aren't, and things like that. So I'm going to make a checkpoint which doesn't use the normal checkpoint stuff to demonstrate how to use the interrupt of the exclusive gate. I'm not saying you should just use this instead of making a checkpoint, but this is an example of how you could use an exclusive gate and this particular feature. So let's say this puppet has a zone on it, and let's position it over there. So this zone will detect tags, and we'll have a tag called checkpoint, and this is going to look for that tag. If the tag is inside the zone, then the zone knows it's detecting the tag, and the tag knows it's being detected by a zone. And it sends that as an output through tag output. So then over here, we can make an actual checkpoint. So I'm going to make a visual marker, and I'll put a chip on it, and just put this in the chip. And I'll make a keyframe to make that glow. So if I just wire that straight into there, and then use test mode, and run close to that checkpoint thing, then it turns on. But that will just be on while we're next to it. So what I'll do is I'll have an exclusive gate, and we'll give that a name. We'll call that checkpoint as well. And we'll send a signal into it. We'll have this set to manual mode, which means once it's on, it won't just turn itself off if the signal going into it goes off, but you'll have to send a value into close gate or do some other things to actually close this gate, which we'll get to in a minute. So we'll wire that into gate input. So now when it is detected by that trigger zone, then it will send a signal into here, which will try and open this gate if nothing else is open. And then it actually has this signal coming out of it active, so while the gate is open, then it will be sending a signal from active. So let's use that, wire that into the keyframe, so that it just stays on even after we leave that area. So if we go here, then we run away, then it still stays on. So let's make a copy of that over here. So that has all the same logic, so we can go over to here and that will stay on. But now if we go over here, it just ignores us, because if we go into edit mode, we can have a look at why. So this one is open and it has the same name as that, but because one of the gates with that name is open, none of the other ones can open, even though this one has a signal going into it trying to open it. So what we really want is to interrupt any of the other gates, so that any other gate that is on gets closed and this one takes over. So let's go and wire that same signal into interrupt, and we'll do the same over here so it works the same. And I'll use test mode, and now we can watch what the gate does. So we go over here and it turns on. And then when we go over here, that new one turns on and the other one turned off. And now this current checkpoint is glowing and the other one is not glowing. So for it to be an actual checkpoint, we want to we're just going to teleport this player to the right position when the player dies. To teleport something, we first need a tag. We'll call this respawn, and we'll have this. Imagine this is at the feet of the player and Z points forward. So let's say that this one should be there, and we'll power that with the active port. So if this checkpoint is the active checkpoint, then that tag will be powered, but the other tag over here won't be. So let's move that point over here. So then in here we want to teleport, like when we would die, instead of actually doing the whole death thing, we'll just reset the health manager and teleport ourselves to the respawn position. So let's add a teleporter, and that will target that tag that we made, which is respawn, and we want it to use the orientation as well so that it faces the right way. Now when we have no health, we want to reset the health and we want to turn on the teleporter. So that will work because as we're immediately resetting itself, this will no longer send a signal, so it will just turn on the teleporter for a split second. So we'll actually put this through a node to make things a little easier. We'll have a node in no port mode so that we can just plug things into the left and take a wire out of the other side, and then we'll wire that into there, and then we can trigger. This is basically it respawning. So then we can trigger that in different ways. When it normally would die, we can just trigger this respawn instead. So that one actually doesn't matter. So we can wire that into there, so that when we fall off a cliff, that's what this does. When you fall off a cliff, then it will trigger this stuff. So let's see if that works. Let's trigger that checkpoint and then fall off a cliff. And it teleported us, and for some reason we were like way down in the ground. And then we turn this one on and jump off of there, and we should teleport to that one. And we do. But we haven't set the teleporter position, that's the problem. So if we turn on the grid and use L1 and triangle, then we will use the orientation and stuff of this puppet, and we'll put that between the feet, and Z is pointing forward just like the tags. And then we can turn that off and try that again. Whee! And we teleported correctly. And we also teleported correctly. That will still work for other things, like from the health manager. If I just copy this block and just have a health modifier on it, so that when we're near it, it'll give us damage to our health. So if we activate a checkpoint first, and we go over to here, and that kills us using the health manager and puts us back over at this checkpoint. But what if we haven't activated a checkpoint yet? So basically we just want to put a checkpoint at the start, which doesn't need that or that, and it will just be invisible. It doesn't even need the box, we can delete that. It just needs the exclusive gate and the respawn point. So let's put that over here where the character actually starts. It's currently working because it's the last one, but if I did that, or if I made another copy over here, now this isn't the last one to be made, so it won't default to being the one that's opened or whatever. We need to make sure it starts as the active position, so let's just wire a switch into it. So now when we play time, that's already powered, that's already active. So if we fall off a cliff now, it'll put us back to that original position. But if we go to a checkpoint and then die over here, it will put us at that checkpoint. We probably also want the camera to start behind it, so what we'll do is we'll have a little timeline, and we'll power the timeline instead and put the teleporter onto the timeline. So let's make sure the teleporter has the right position and put a camera in it, which is really short as well, and we'll just put that behind the player, so that when we respawn, we also put the camera behind the player, which will be more useful to them. So let's put that onto cut mode, so it immediately snaps to that view, and we'll put this onto once mode, so that even if it's powered and powered off, it will just play through that little bit, and that's it. So let's try looking from this direction. So the camera snapped to that point of view. We'll try it from over here, like that. So the actual checkpoint logic is very easy because of the exclusive gate. If you used you could use a selector for this, but you'd be limited to 10 checkpoints, and you'd have to wire them in and change how many checkpoints you're allowed and things like that every single time. But with this, you can just copy these around like you do with a regular checkpoint gadget. So if for some reason normal checkpoints aren't working for your game, maybe this will work. Or maybe you want to use this interrupt logic for something else, or you want some NPC to jump to the checkpoint that you were at last, things like that. I'd like to thank Whitebeardy, Reiko, Thojar, and all of my other supporters for making this tutorial possible. Check out TAPgiles.com to find out how you can support me in helping Dreams creators. Thanks for your consideration, and I'll see you in the next one.